Begin today the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Yutes Amud Beis, 3 lines at the bottom of the Yamud. So there was a Mishnah that brought a machlekes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding a Nazir that accepted upon himself Naziris, but he fulfilled his Naziris all in Chutz La'aretz. So Chazal said, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to do the Naziris over. But here there was a machlekes. Beis Shammai says you only have to keep 30 days of Naziris. Regardless of how long your Naziris was, even if your original Naziris was very long, come to Eretz Yisrael, you only have to keep 30 days of Naziris. Beis Hillel says, whatever amount of days you accepted Naziris and Chutz La'aretz, you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to redo the whole thing over again. Right? Now the basis of both opinions is the idea that in Chutz La'aretz, there's a gzeirim and the Rabbanon that Chutz La'aretz makes you tamei. A Nazir is not allowed to become tamei. So he was in Chutz La'aretz in a place of tumah. So when he comes to Eretz Yisrael, he has to keep the Naziris over again. But the Gemara here will explain what's the basis of the machlekes. Now, Katani Reisha, so it says in the Mishnah, Beis Shammai, Yomrim Beis Shammai say, Nazir shloishim yom. He only has to keep again another 30 days. Beis Hillel Yomrim Nazir b'tchila. Not 30 days. He has to keep over the entire Naziris from the beginning. So leime b'hakam mifleki. Shall we say that this is the machlekes? Now, we have the Gemara as it appears over here in front of us, the Girsa, but most Rishonim switch the Girsa in the Gemara, so I'm going to go with the Girsa of Taisvis, the Rosh, and most Rishonim, okay? So Beis Shammai Savri, Beis Shammai's opinion is, Eretz Ha'amim, that the Tumah, that Chazal decreed in Chutz La'aretz, Mishum Avira, over here you got the word Avira instead of Gusha, Mishum Avira Gazru Aleh. When Chazal said that you become Tamei in Chutz La'aretz, they said that if you touch the earth itself, you become tamei. That's the usual tumah. A tumah smeis, if you're stepping on the earth itself, which is the place of a kever, you become tamei. Or if your body creates an oihel, a cover over that area where there's a mace, you also become tamei. That's a tumah usually min ha-Torah. Chazal, when they were geizer tumah in Chutz La'aretz, they were geizer that even if you enter into Chutz La'aretz, just into the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, without touching the floor. How is that possible? A person that enters into Chutz La'aretz riding on a wagon or inside some box, he's being carried on a horse inside a box, he's not at all touching the ground. He's just in the airspace. So according to Beis Shammai, when Chazal said that in Chutz La'aretz Yitamei, they said not only is the ground itself Tamei, but even the airspace is Tamei. Okay, so now therefore what? So the way the Rishonim explain this is, so it's very clear that the Tumah of Chutz La'aretz is not the ordinary Tumah min ha-Torah. And therefore, when they were machmer, that when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to redo your Naziris, you don't have to redo it from scratch. It's enough, there were guys that just to redo 30 days. Because it's clear that this type of Tumah here that you wore in Chutz La'aretz, you became Tumah, is not the same as a regular Tumah min ha-Torah. So therefore, you don't have to re-keep the whole Naziris. But Beis Hillel Savri, on the other hand, Beis Hillel's opinion is, and here most Rishonim, as I said, are guided, Mishum Gusha Gazru Aleh, that in Chutz La'aretz, the Gzeira of Tumah is similar to the Tumah min ha-Torah. Just like a Tumah min ha-Torah is only the earth itself is Tamei, the airspace doesn't make you Tamei. So since the Tumah in Chutz La'aretz is similar to the Tumah min ha-Torah, so therefore Chachamim said, if you were a Nazir in Chutz La'aretz, you have to re-keep your entire Naziris, similar to a person that became Tamei min ha-Torah, that you have to re-keep your entire Naziris, the same in Chutz La'aretz. Because if they're not going to make the same Gezeira, people are going to confuse the two, because the Tumah in Chutz La'aretz is similar to the Tumah min ha-Torah. That's the basis of Beis Hillel's opinion. Okay, but the Gemara says, not necessarily is this the explanation of the machlekes. Loi, I can say that this is not so. The Kula Alma, everybody agrees, and over here, the Rishonim Agairis, Mishom, Avira Gazru Aleh. Then in Chutz La'aretz, it's different than the Tumah min ha-Torah. It's a Tumah that even the airspace will make you Tamei. Meaning, so it's clear that it's not the same to the Tumah min ha-Torah. But nevertheless, there's still machlekes. Beis Shammai Savri, Beis Shammai say, Bistam Naziris Kanisna. That because it's clear that it's not exactly the same like a Tumah min ha-Torah, so therefore, yes, they said you have to recount Naziris, but not the full Naziris. The penalty is that you just have to recount 30 days of Naziris. Beis Hillel Savri, but Beis Hillel say, Ki kanisna betchilas Naziros. Even though Taka, it's not the same kind of a Tumah as a Tumah min ha-Torah, but nevertheless, because Chachamim were geizer, that in Chutz La'aretz you became Tamei, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to start your entire Naziris all over again from the beginning. Okay. Now the Gemara goes back to the story that was brought in our Mishnah. The Gemara brought a story in our Mishnah, Maise behilni amalka v'chulu. What was the story with Hilni Amalka? She had a son that went out to war. And she took upon herself that if her son comes back home alive, she will become a Nazir. And then the Gemara, the Mishnah describes that what happened. She accepted upon herself Naziris for 7 years. Then she came to Eretz Yisrael. She had to keep, according to Beis Hillel, another 7 years. And then at the end of her Naziris, she became Tummy again, and now she had to keep another 7 years. And together she kept 21 years. Then the Mishnah brought, and this is the main thing the Mishnah is going to focus on, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Lehoisa Nazira Ela Arba Esra Shana. The story with Hilni Amalka was that she was only a Nazira for 14 years, not 21 years. So the Gemara wants to understand what details Rabbi Yehuda arguing on the Tanakama regarding the story here. The question was asked, B'shenitmes v'aliba de Beishamai. Is the point here that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to the story the way it happened, that she came to Eretz Yisrael and she had to keep additional Naziris, and then she became Tomei at the end, and she had to keep another 7 years. But the reason why Rabbi Yehuda is arguing is because Rabbi Yehuda is going according to Beishamai. So therefore, what does Beishamai say? Beishamai says when Hilni Amalka came to Eretz Yisrael, she only had to keep 30 days. And then at the end of that 30 days, she became Tomei, and then she had to keep another 7 years. Right? So therefore, together it's only 14 years. So basically, the reason Rabbi Yehuda is arguing is because he's going according to Beishamai.
Well, you get 7 more years after 30
Again?
days. You have 30 days, why 7 more years?
Because the 30 days is considered to be a continuation. Chachamim were geyser, they have to continue your Naziris. So if you become Tameh before the end of the 30 days, it nullifies your entire Naziris. You have to count the whole thing over again. Or perhaps he doesn't argue that we're going here according to Basil, but Rabbi Yehuda is just arguing about the story, what happened, the facts of what happened. What he says is that she never ended up becoming Tamei at the end. He's going like Basil. What he's saying is she kept her 7 years Naziris and Chutz La'aretz. Then she came to Eretz Yisrael. She had to keep another 7 years Naziris over again, and that was the end. She never ended up becoming Tamei. Okay, so basically the Gemara wants to know if Rabbi Yehuda holds like Beishamai or Basil. Tashema, so the Gemara says, well, if you look into the language of the Mishnah itself, you could see what Rabbi Yehuda argues about. What does it say? Also la'aretz v'hairua Beisilo shetei nizira oit sheva shana macheres. The Tanakama describes she came to Eretz Yisrael, and Beisilo told her you have to be a Nazir another 7 years v'chulu. And what does the Mishnah say in the story? What happened in the story? At the end of the 7 years that she kept in Eretz Yisrael, she became Tomei. Now, from the Tanakama that it says that she became Tamei at the end of the 7 years, we can understand that the point here is that even Rabbi Yehuda, if he would argue, he agrees that when did she become Tamei? At the end of her Naziris, on the last day. That's when she became Tamei. Now, if the pshat here is that Rabbi Yehuda agrees that she became Tamei, but it's going according to Beishamai's opinion. So then, why is Rabbi Yehuda saying that she was a Nazir for 14 years? It's not precise. It should be 14 years plus 30 days. Because she was 7 years, then she came to Eretz Yisrael and kept 30 days, and then at the end of the 30 days, just similar to the Tanakama, that's what the Gemara is understanding this. Just like the Tanakama says that at the end of the Nazir she became Tamei, so according to Rabbi Yehuda as well, at the end of the 30 days she became Tamei, and now she has to keep another 7 years. So it should be 14 years plus 30 days. That's what it should have said. So the fact that it says 14 years means that Rabbi Yehuda is saying, like Beis Hillel, that she kept 7 years, she came to Eretz Yisrael, she kept another 7 years, and she never became Tomei. That's why it's exactly 14 years. The Gemara brings another raya to this from another angle. Tanya Nami Hachi, I'll bring you a raya to this from what it says in the Braisa. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehuda, which is a Tana that we're speaking about here in our Mishnah. So he said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, we learned this already before, that the Amakra, the Torah says, Zois Torah san Nazir, and what the main thing is actually the next part of the Pasik, and it says, B'yoyim Melois. This is the halacha of the Nazir, B'yoyim Melois, on the day that he concludes his Naziris. What does this teach us? HaTorah is telling you here, Ki nitme B'yoyim Melois, that if you become Tamei on the last day of your Naziris, 10 loy Torah's Nazir. So then what happens is, you only have to be a Nazir another 30 days. That's it, not more than another 30 days. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, if what happened over here is that she became Tamei, if we're going here according to the opinion of Beishamai, She came to Eretz Yisrael, she kept 30 days, and then she became Tomei on the last day. So then she only has to keep another 30 days. So then it would really only be 7 years and 60 days. So then the Mishnah would never say 14 years. Because she became Tomei, she would never have to keep another 7 years because it's on the last day. This is the halacha we learned already before. On the last day, according to Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Yehuda says like Rabbi Eliezer, you only have to keep another 30 days. Therefore, it must be that the pshat in our Mishnah is that she did not become Tomei, rather she came to Eretz Yisrael, and we're going according to Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says, you keep your Naziris in Chutz La'aretz, you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to keep the entire Naziris all over again. That's the story here. That what?
Looking in the Mishnah,
No.
It says the words Meis.
That she became Tomei, you mean?
Yeah,
but that's the Tanakama. That's the point that Rabbi Yehuda is arguing on. Tanakama says Nitmis, and Rabbi Yehuda is saying no. She was only a Nazir for 14 years. She did not become Tomei.
So it's an argument.
Exactly. It's an argument. It is. Akasha, it's an argument about the Metzias. It is. Yeah. Okay. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, mi shahayu shtei kite edem yidesaisai. There are two groups of Edom that are testifying about what this person accepted upon himself. So they're contradicting each other. Elumi, the one group of Edom are testifying shenoza shtayim, that they heard him saying that he accepts upon himself to be twice a Nazir. How long is Nazirus? 30 days. So he accepts upon himself to be twice a Nazir, that's 60 days. Now the Elumi Edom, and then another two Edom say Shenazar Chomesh, that he accepted upon himself, and they're saying that very same time that you say that you heard him say that he's going to be a Nazir twice, we heard him saying that he's going to be a Nazir 5 times. Okay, so they're contradicting each other. So somebody's lying here. One of these groups of Edom is lying or didn't hear right. So Beishamai, that's a good question. The Rosh speaks about that actually. Is the person agreeing to them? Is he quiet? Beishamai say nechlakah. So there's an argument here between the Eidos, so we can't trust either one of them. This is what's called hakasha. There's a contradiction. So if there's a contradiction, we can't believe any of them. So then that's it. He doesn't have to keep any of this naziris. There's no naziris here. Beis Hillel say yesh bechlal chomesh shtayim. Included in the number 5, there's 2. So Shehei Nazir Shtayim. So therefore he has to be a Nazir at least twice. That we know for sure is true. Even if the other Edom are saying that he said 5, but then somebody is lying over here. But one thing is for sure, that he definitely accepted upon himself to be twice a Nazir. Therefore he's going to have to keep his Naziris twice. Okay, that's the way our Mishnah describes this machlekes. Sagt the Gemara, Masnisin the Loikai Tana. The way our Mishnah describes this machlekes does not follow what the following Tana said. Tanya and a Braisa we learned Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yechanan ben Breikaim. Rabbi Shmuel said, Loi nechluku Beishamai and Beisilo, or Beisilo, Beishamai and Beisilo did not argue. Al shtei kitei Edom, when there are two groups of witnesses that are contradicting each other. And one says you accepted upon yourself to be a Nazir twice, and the other says no, at that time I heard you accepted upon yourself to be 5 times a Nazir. So in such a case everybody will agree, like Beis Hillel, sheyesh bechlal chomesh shtayim, that part of 5 means that we know for sure that twice he has to be a Nazir. But aman nechlaku, where was the machlokes of Beishamai and Beis Hillel? Al kat achas, if there was only one group of Edom. Now, this group of Edom, these 2 witnesses are contradicting each other. You don't even have one group of Edom that is saying 2 and the other that's saying 5. No, the one group is contradicting each other. Echad oimeh shtayim. One says that he accepted upon himself to be a Nazir twice, and ve'echad oimeh chomesh, and the other one says 5. So in this case, Beishamai yoimrim nechlakay dusam. Beishamai says that the Edus is now split. Because over here, one of them is lying, so therefore you don't have 2 Edom to tell us that this person accepted upon himself Naziris even twice. So why should he have to keep Naziris even twice? You only have one aid saying that he accepted upon himself Naziris twice, another one disagrees with him. So it's really just one aid that's saying this. And you can, according to him, you can't say yesh bechlal chomesh shtayim, because the fact is that one aid is saying that the other one is lying. So if each one is saying the other one is lying, so it comes out that you only have an Eid Echad saying that he accepted upon himself Naziris. Second one. Beis Hillel Oimrim, and Beis Hillel say, Yesh b'chlal chomish tayim. Even in this case, you could say that included in 5 is 2. And so the Mefarshim explain what this means is, Basil is saying, one is not necessarily saying that the other one is lying and so on. What he's saying is that maybe you didn't hear right. You made a mistake. You thought that he said shtayim, he really said chomish. The other one says, no, you thought he said chomish, no, he really said shtayim. But not that one of them is lying. So therefore it comes out that we could say that included in chomish is shtayim, that we know for sure that he accepted twice to be a Nazir.
Yeah? Somebody says you need Edis to become a Nazir?
Yeah. No, you don't need Edis to become a Nazir. So again, so the shaila is what the person himself is saying. So the pashtus, the simplest pshat in this Gemara is that the person himself is quiet. The person himself, I don't know, he doesn't know, he forgot. He's quiet. He's not saying anything. That's the simplest shot in the Gemara. If the person himself is contradicting these Eidim, or the person himself is agreeing to the one that said 2 or said 5, then it's a different story. Right? I mean, if a person says one thing and the Eidim say different than him, you're going to have to listen to what the Eidim say. Because Pishnayim Eidim, right? If it's two, correct. But over here, the simplest way to learn this Gemara is that this person is quiet. And if he's quiet, so then if 2 Eidim say, so then you have to listen to them. But if you don't have 2 Eidim, so then he doesn't have to follow what they say. Oh, Marav. Now Rav said regarding this last point over here that we just said, right? When is the machlokes? The machlokes is when you have 2 Eidim and they're sort of contradicting each other. One says 2 and the other one says 5. So Rav says, Hakoil Moidim, everybody's going to agree, b'mayna that is, in a case that these 2 Eidim that are contradicting each other are counting. If they're going to be counting, everybody will agree that it's considered to be that they're contradicting each other. What does it mean that they're counting? So the Gemara explains right over here. Rav Chama says Rav Chizde, my kama. What is Rav saying? That if these 2 witnesses are counting, then their words are definitely a contradiction. If you're going to say what Rav meant to say is as follows. One Eid is saying that I heard him clearly saying 5, that he's going to be a Nazir 5 times. And he says, I telling you it's not 2. I heard him saying 5 and not 2. And the other one says, I heard him saying 2 and not 5. So that's what Maina means. He spells out and he says, I heard specifically this number and not the other number. So, in such a case, so definitely they're contradicting each other. You don't have 2 Eidim over here that this person is a Nazir. Like I said before, Rav was saying that even when you have these 2 Eidim and they're not saying the same number, so it could be that one of them is making a mistake. That he didn't hear so clearly. So he says, I think I heard 5. Another one says, I heard 2. So we know for sure that there's 2, but could be one of them made a mistake. But if each one is saying very clearly, I heard 2 and not 5, and the other one is saying, I heard 5 and not 2, it's a clear akasha. They're contradicting each other. So you don't have any edus. So that's not what Rav meant to say. Hakoil maidim. That would be very obvious. That's not the chiddush of Rav. Hello. So the Gemara says, what does Maina mean? What did Rav mean to say that if they're counting, so then for sure this edus is split. So Chayre, what he meant to say is as follows. Echad Oimer, one of the Eidim came and said, Achas Ushtayim. I heard this person when he accepted the Nazirus upon himself, he said 1 and a second time. That's what he said. Ve'echad Oimer, Shalosh Arbe Chomish. No, this person accepted upon himself 3, 4, and 5. That's what so each one is saying a different number. That's what Maina means. One Eid is saying, one Eid is counting. He said once and twice, and the other one is counting and saying, no, 3, 4, and 5. So in such a case, that he accepted upon himself to be a Nazir 3 times, 4 times, and then he also accepted upon himself a 5th time. And in such a case, Rav would be saying that he's counting 1 and he's saying only 1 and 2, and the other one is counting 3, 4, 5. It's a contradiction. And for sure the Eidus is split. But the Gemara says, why? In such a case, why should we say it's split at all? So this is the question here. Who's asking about this? Rav Chama. Rav Chama is asking, Ha lamali. Why would I say in such a case that this is split? If we're going to say that he accepted upon himself, that in a case, Chamir Ta'amar, Taich of Chamir Ta'amar over here means, again, if we could say that 1/8 said that he accepted upon himself 3, 4, 5, so from that aid we understand that he wanted accept upon himself more Naziris, 3, 4, and 5. Now you take out, according to the Girs over here of the Rosh, you take out the word Rav. Kilse lo yomar. So you're going to say that the lower number of 1 and 2, he did not mean to say. In other words, what the Gemara is saying is, there's really no contradiction over here at all between these two Eidim. When 1-8 says that he said 1 and 2, so that 8 said that he accepted upon himself 1 Naziris, then a second Naziris, comes the other 8 along, and he says no, and he accepted more. He accepted 3, 4, and 5. So now the Gemara is saying, so when the second 8 says 3, 4, and 5, so we now know that it's 3, 4, and 5. But he's not contradicting what the other 8 said when he said 1 and 2. He's not adding, he doesn't have to say 1 and 2 because he already said 1 and 2. The second one is just coming to add, not only 1 and 2, also 3, 4, and 5. So I guess if we could say that he accepted upon himself more, that's a contradiction to less. It's a contradiction to say that he also accepted upon himself 1 and 2. That's not a contradiction at all. So therefore, according to Rav Chama, he's asking on Rav that l'chayre should have to keep at least 1 and 2. Yeah, should have to keep at least 1 and 2 because for that we have 2 Eidim. For 3, 4, and 5 we don't have 2 Eidim. But the 8 that said 3, 4, and 5 is not contradicting what the previous 8 said when he said 1 and 2. So the Gemara concludes that in Eretz Yisrael, Marava Amri b'Marava, and Ma'ariv in the West, which is in Eretz Yisrael, the Taka said this: Ein hakoshe b'mayne. When you have 1 that counts 1 and 2, and the second 8 comes along and says 3, 4, and 5, there's no contradiction here. The second one is agreeing to the first; he's just adding more, and therefore we have 2 Eidim that he accepted upon himself 2 Naziris, and he's going to have to keep those 2 Naziris. Hadran Allah mi sha'amar. This is the conclusion of the third Perek, Perek mi sha'amar. The next Perek, as you see, is also called mi sha'amar. Continuing the halachas of Naziris, similar halachas of Naziris.
Does anybody hold, in the case of 2 and 5, that he should at least keep 1?
Should at least keep 1. Why 1?
Because he said something. They're arguing that he said something. We don't know what he said.
If this person is quiet and he's saying
he
nothing now, no,
Listen,
I don't think
hold
so.
that way? That's what
I don't think, not that I know of. No. Zok Teilige Mishnah, we begin the fourth Perek of Masechta Nazir. Mi sha'amar hareini Nazir. Person says, I will be a Nazir. V'shama chaveira, and his friend heard this, and va'amar, and he said, va'ani, and I as well. And then a second person heard this, and he said, va'ani, and I as well. Kulam Nazirim. So they all become a Nazir. Okay, this is the concept of being matfis, meaning you can say, you don't have to say, I'm going to be a Nazir, as long as someone else is a Nazir, and you say, I am as well, so you're going to be like him, so you become a Nazir. Now, hutar harishain, if the first person, his Nazirus, he got a heter, he went to a chacham and he got a heter, uprooted his Nazirus, hutru kulan, so the rest that follow after him, their Nazirus is also permitted, right? Because their own Nazirus is dependent on the first. They said, we're going to be like him. So if he's not a Nazir, so they're not a Nazir either. However, huta achrain, if the last one got a heter for his Nazirus, so then ha'achrain mutter. Only the last one will be permitted. He's not, the other 2 before him are not dependent on him, so he has a heter, but the other 2 remain a Nazir. V'kulan asurin. Omar areini Nazir, a person says, I will be a Nazir, v'shama chaveira. And his friend hears this, and v'amar, and he says, Pi kipiv, my mouth will be like his mouth. Or he said, V'sairi kisaira, my hair should be like his hair. Harei Nazir. This with this language, you become a Nazir. The Gemara will explain why. Another case, like the Mishnah, Areini Nazir, a person says, I'll be a Nazir. V'shama ishtai, and his wife heard her husband saying that he's going to be a Nazir. V'amra, and she says, V'ani, I'm also going to be a Nazira, like you. Now, Meiferes Shalah, the husband has the ability to nullify her Nazirus she accepted upon herself, like any ned that a wife accepts, the husband could nullify this. And v'shaloi kayam. But even after he nullifies his wife's Nazirus, that doesn't mean that his Nazirus will be permitted as well. They're not linked to one another. He's accepted upon himself his Nazirus, that stays. His wife's Nazirus, he can be made for that, and that will be nullified. Areini Nazira. What happens, however, in a case where she accepted first upon herself to be a Nazir, and now v'shama baila, the husband heard that his wife is going to be a Nazir, and v'amar, and the husband responds and says, Vani, I'm going to be a Nazir like you. So now, the husband cannot nullify the Nazirus of his wife. By him accepting that he's going to be a Nazir like his wife, he just validated his wife's Nazirus, that he's going to be like her. So he can't nullify it anymore. Another case, Hareini Nazir. The husband went first. The husband said, even though being matter or neder, I don't think Teich Dibur. I don't know. Okay, we'll see soon in the Gemara about Teich Dibur, but regarding being matter, I don't know if Teich Dibur works. Hareini Nazir, a person says, I'm going to be a Nazir. And he says to his wife, Va'at, and you too. Now, a husband cannot make his wife a Nazira just by saying Va'at, but in essence, he's sort of proposing it to her. He's like asking her a question. Do you want to be a Nazir as well? Va'avra amen. She accepts it. She says, yeah, amen. Yes, I'll be a Nazir like you as well. So over here in this case, so his Naziris is not dependent on hers. Mayfair Shalah, even after she accepted to be like him, to be a Nazir, he could nullify her Naziris. But V'shaloi Kayim, his Naziris will remain. If it was the reverse, Hareini Nazira, she said, I'm going to be a Nazira, Ve'ata, and then she's proposing to him, would you be a Nazir as well? Ve'amar Amen, and he accepts upon himself to be a Nazir like her. So then, he validated her Naziris by accepting the Naziris that she proposed to him, so now he can't be made for the Naziris. So now the Gemara says, Yosef, Reish Lakish, Kamed Rabbi Yehuda Nesiyah. Reish Lakish was sitting in front of Rabbi Yehuda Nesiyah, and Yosef is sitting and says as follows. All these people, you had the first person that said, I'm going to be a Nazir. Then other people came along and said, me too, me too. Whoever comes along and says, me too, it has to be within the time of the first person speaking. Even, not only the first person, in other words. Any additional people that come along, all has to be Teich Kedei Dibur of the first person. Now, what's called Teich Kedei Dibur? This is brought in Shas many times. Yeah, of the first person. Correct. That's the Gemara's understanding right now. The Gemara later will discuss this and change this, but right now the Gemara's understanding that they all have to be Teich Kedei Dibur of the first person. Now, V'kama Teich Kedei Dibur. Whenever the Gemara brings Teich Kedei Dibur, what does this expression mean? Kedei She'ilas Shalom. As long as it takes to greet a person. The kama kedei she'ilas shalom. How long does it take to greet a person? Kedei she'omer shalom talmid l'rav. As long as it takes for a student to greet his teacher. So those are the three words. Shalom alecha Rebbe. As long as it takes to say three words, that's considered to be Teich Kedei Dibur. Which basically means, over here in the case of our Mishnah, that you could only have three people that could say Vani. If a fourth person comes along and says Vani, so he's already after Teich Kedei Dibur. Vani is Teich Kedei Dibur, and the fourth person is already right after Teich Kedei Dibur. Okay, that's how it comes out according to Reish Lakish. Well, if they're saying it mamish, if they're saying it bevas achas, it's a different story. But if they're saying it one after the next, you could only have three people, not more. So on this, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiyah argued, and he said, Amalei, Suvle Shafkis Rafchel Talmida. So you're not giving any space for a student that encounters his teacher to be able to accept upon himself an Naziris in such a situation. But what he's saying is, what happens if a person hears his friend saying Hareini Nazir, and he wants to accept upon himself Va'ani, to be a Nazir like his friend, and his teacher happens to walk by, so he says Shalom Alecha Rebbe, and now he can't say Vani to be like the other person because he already said Shalom Alecha Rebbe, so it's not. So he already used up his time, 3 words, and now if he wants to say Vani, it's too late. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiyah says it's not mistaver to say that if you just miss that opportunity because of those 3 words, it's not good enough. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiyah says that if it's right after Teich Kedei Dibur, you could also say Vani. Right? And this is a concept. I mean, the way that Rosh calls it over here is Mechuber l'Teich Kedei Dibur. Or other Rishonim call it a Samach Teich Kedei Dibur, which means a 4th person that says Vani, it'll also take effect. But it has to be only the 4th, not the 5th, not weiter. If it's right after Teich Kedei Dibur, it's also going to work. And he's giving this example. He's saying a student that he had to say hello to his Rebbe, his Shalom Alecha Rebbe, we have to let him say Vani as well. So therefore, it should go to the 4th person as well. That's the machlekes here.
Do we have that anywhere else?
Such a concept of Samach Teich Kedei Dibur? I don't know. Remember such a thing? Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Samach Teich Kedei Dibur. Chuber, yeah.